never must see. Get up on your feet, rise up.
Welcome to another segment of the Drexel SEMA Show. And today this show will be entitled, Where Are the Men? You know, a lady friend of mine called me several weeks ago and she said, Drexel, what is happening to the man in society? Where are the men? And because of that conversation with her, it had me thinking, and it prompted me to do a show, a series actually, on Where Are the Men? And so today I've invited a friend of mine, Mr. Trevor Cooke. We're going to have this discussion, Where Are the Men? And even though we might not hear a lot about men in society, what they're doing, I think there are some men in the society who are doing some great things, trying to save the lives of our young people, grooming them, you know, so when they become adults, they can make an impactful difference in our community. And I believe one of those men in our society is Mr. Trevor Cooke. So Trevor, I want to welcome you to my show, and thank you for accepting the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seymour. The pleasure is all mine.
Yeah. Well, Trevor, before we get into the meat of our topic, let the viewers know about you. I think when we talk about Where Are the Men, I think you are a powerful man in the society. You are the man who basically initiated or started, or you were the first director of the National Insurance Board. So give us some background about you.
Mr. Seymour, if you don't mind, I just want to step back a bit.
It's fine.
Because a lot of times, because of my Bahamian accent, there are persons who are not familiar with me, who question whether or not I'm a Turks and Caicos Islander, right? And as you know, I was born in South Caicos, grew up in South Caicos for a period until my mom and dad migrated to Grand Bahama in the Bahamas, where I went to primary and high school and spent a whole lot of time there. And that is the place where my development began. I grew up in a society where the men took the leadership role, where the men were responsible for imparting various disciplines and what have you to the younger men. And most of it for me occurred in the area of sports.
Okay.
Right, and so that is where my initial exposure came about in regard to leadership. Not only did they show us the correct example, they were the individuals planning for us in terms of how they wanted our future to unfold.
Yeah.
They planned in such a way where we would be able to make use of the opportunities that we will encounter along the way. And so as a result of that type of atmosphere, I had the opportunity to go off to school, right? And going off to school, I was able to get a BA and I was able to get a BS at the Freed-Hardeman College in the state of Tennessee. And so it is through those opportunities there that put me in a position to make use of opportunities here when I return home.
All right. Tell us about some of those opportunities. We'll come back to national insurance. Tell us about some of those opportunities and what you have done.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about often, and a lot of times people tend to not think about these things. The way you grow up contributes to the type of man you're going to be.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're a strong individual and you say, hey, this is the path I want to take. These are the things I want to achieve in terms of my development, right? And so I didn't grow up like many other individuals grew up in the Bahamas. I come from a broken home in the sense that my dad wasn't always available in terms of carrying out his role as the father or the head of that household. You know, we're talking a little bad, but my mom was the man and the woman for many, many years. And so, you know, I saw what she went through. And I saw my dad struggle with certain things. Not that he wasn't a good person, he tried, right? And so forth. And she never embarrassed him. She always propped him up. She was there to support him and provide guidance and strength and encouragement to him. But she was the person who was our rock,
wow.
right? And so a lot of things that happened to me came about as a result of her, came about as a result of the type of life in which I grew up, right? And so I wanted different for myself from what my dad provided. I wanted more what my mom provided in terms of the limited opportunities that she cut off in terms of playing the role of dad and mom, right? And so I remember being in high school on the island of Grand Bahama and deciding, how am I going to get out of the ghetto? It just, I considered it early.
So you grew up in a ghetto?
I grew up in the ghetto. Those are the areas where you can afford to pay rent and so forth and so on, right? And so I was exposed to everything that everybody here is exposed to, or all of the opportunity to drink alcohol, to smoke dope, to run with the wrong crowd. I was exposed to all of that. But what saved me was that I grew up in a life because of my dad. My dad did those type of things. Right? And I decided.
So your dad used to drink and smoke?
Yes, he's a yardie. There were certain things that was in him, right?
Yeah.
Yes, right? So,
No, well, not all.
No, not all of them are like that. But I'm saying he grew up in an environment where dope was common, marijuana was common, he drank with his friends and what have you. So I decided I didn't want that for me. And I didn't want it for me because of what
you saw what
my mom, what it did to my mom and our family.
You saw the impact.
Yes. So I decided I didn't want that for me, and so I plotted my course early in life. And so one of the key things for me was sports. Sports provided me with an opportunity to get away from all of that was going on at home. Sports provided me with an opportunity to be able to access tertiary education by virtue of my skills in various sporting activities. And so I decided to zoom in on sports. I remember.
So are you saying because of sport you was able to go to university?
Yes, that was my staying power, right? Because God wasn't as prevalent in my life at that time, right? It was about sports. Sports and the life that I grew up in that I didn't want, right? And the only option available to me was sports. You had like one of the main scholarships you had in the Bahamas was the Paul Authority Scholarship. But you had thousands, literally thousands of students applying for that, right? And I remember being in a class with Clayton Green and a number of other Turks and Caicos and Islanders, not knowing that they were Turks and Caicos Islanders, where 80% of the students were A students, right? And so so sports helped me to get where I wanted to get, right? And I got to back up a bit because it's a combination of two things. And folks out there, especially those religious people, they're going to smile. I remember growing up as an Anglican.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I was an Anglican too.
Yeah, I grew up as an Anglican. My mom, she's an Anglican, right?
Yeah, I guess
so
a lot of some kids was Anglican anyway.
Yeah, I grew up in an Anglican home, even on Grand Bahama. And so there were certain things that popped into the scriptures when I read it that caused me to question certain things. And so I went through a period in my life where I was doing this search. And so from an Anglican, and I never really told my mom, I migrated to becoming an Adventist because there were some things that attracted me to that religion. And so I remember moving to a neighborhood, an upscale neighborhood, when I was working as a chef in one of the local hotels immediately after high school. And so I ran into this preacher from the Church of Christ. I had questions, right? Because these are the questions that came out. Because when you read the Bible, you have these things, and you notice that they appear to be diametrically opposed to each other.
So a little conflicting.
Yes. So I had questions, and so I threw some questions at this older guy, and he came back with some solid answers, right? And so we continued our relationship. The relationship grew. And I remember one day he spoke to me. He said, "Listen, there's a university that is related to this church. They're looking for certain athletes in this particular sport." And he said, "Would you like to give it a shot?" I said, "That would be wonderful, right? Because it was one of my ways out."
Right. Because your family then couldn't afford to send you to.
No. And you remember, I'm a Turks and Caicos Islander.
In a foreign land.
In a foreign land. So the opportunities available to Bahamian children are not available to me, despite being one of the top students in high school throughout the country, right? And so he took me up to Freed Hardeman University. I met with the coach, we went through the routines and so forth and so on. And so I was able to obtain a scholarship at Freed Hardeman University in the sport of basketball.
Okay.
And so while at Freed, I did what I had to do. I became exposed because really and truly, I grew up in isolation.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah.
We all did. Me too.
Yeah, and then, growing up, attending Freed and growing up, in essence, in the state of Tennessee, right, where the Ku Klux Klan was prevalent, right? And so, man, listen, that experience was off the chain. I remember the first time I saw them. I remember walking, going to lunch in the lunch line and bumping up to a Caucasian, and she likes to rub that shoulder off where I bumped up to her. She nearly take that piece of skin off, right? And so these were the experiences I had. I remember walking home because I had moved from the campus where the single students lived. I moved into the March campus because I wanted to dictate when I come and when I go, because I want to study and then play ball later and do right. And so I remember walking home one night, and I saw this car. It was speeding at first and it slowed up. It had a Dixie flag on it, right? One of those Confederate flags. And so I said, okay. And so as I continued to walk, but I was more vigilant in terms of my surroundings. And so I heard when they sped off, and they threw balls at me.
Oh.
But the momentum of the vehicle caused the balls to be thrown several inches
away
or
from
feet
you.
away from me, right? And so these were some of the experiences, right? And so I said, boy, what have you gotten yourself into? But I was focused.
Right.
Because education was my way out of
Yeah.
the hood. Right? And so
That's a good point. You got to. You're gonna have a lot of distractions and obstacles, but you got to remain focused.
Yes. Yeah, I was focused because this was my way out.
Yeah.
I did not choose like some of my friends, right? Because and I can wove some stories into it for you. I remember playing in the amateur league while I was in high school. I had a friend, Drexel Seymour, very good friend.
Drexel Seymour.
Drexel Porter.
Drexel Porter.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry, Drexel Porter. His brother owned and operated a pub. Drexel managed the pub at nights because he, as the manager, he could do his homework still.
The same Drexel was a police officer here?
No, this is a different Drexel.
Oh, okay.
Bahamas, right? And so he managed the pub. And so our routine was whenever we played our games and we finished, we go to the pub and we hang out. And so every time we get to the pub, he would look at me, right? And he'd call me by my nickname, so Pooch, we were drinking tonight. And my drink was standard, and he knew that. So that's why he would always ask me that every night. So he said, what are you drinking tonight? He said, the boys are going to have some draft beer and some are going to have this, right? I said, you have to wait and see, right? So, Pooch, what you have, be taking all this now? I want a glass of milk. Jackson, when he would start squawking and grinning and laughing at me, right? So the drinks were between milk and orange juice.
Okay.
Why? Because of the environment I grew up in.
Yeah, you didn't want to be in that environment.
No. I saw my dad do a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde when he drank rum.
Yeah. I didn't drink. I never drank.
Yeah.
I think my first beer was when I was 25. My dad had his drink, but he wasn't probably like your dad, but I refused to drink. I just think I was going to take me the wrong path.
Yeah.
So I refused to drink.
So both of us.
Yeah.
That was our thinking.
Yeah.
And that was mine as well, because I saw what it did to him. Right? Mind you, when he was sober, you don't want a greater dad, a better dad. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, he cooked, he did whatever, right? It's when he drank.
Yeah.
Then you see that where he morphed into Dr. Jekyll. Right? So I decided that early, and I kept my routine with beer between milk and orange juice.
Orange juice.
Right? And so I went off to university. In 4 years, I got those 2 degrees because I went to school summers. Right? And so I was the first in my family to do that.
Go to college.
Yes, right? And
so was I.
Yeah. And so people need to understand that despite growing up in a particular environment, you don't have to choose those things. You have choices. The young men of this society and all other societies, they have choices. And things don't have to always be the best situation to make good choices. You make good choices because it is best for you, right? Because the other choices basically will not allow you to achieve what you want to achieve.
But then sometimes,
realize your
I hear
possibility.
right, but sometimes they don't know. That's all they know is that environment. But like you don't want to be in that type of environment. So, and that's why it's important for us to have men in society to help and guide the role, because sometimes people will just become like the environment that they grew up in.
Yeah, because they think that's the only options available to them, right? And then some of those options are glorified, right? The people make it appear as if the best thing for you is to be able to smoke a joint or drink a glass of rum. They never talk about the effects, right? Whether it's the immediate effects or future effects or how it impacts your family. The same money that you use to buy that bottle of rum or buy that bag of weed is money you could have used to do something for your child, to better educate that child, or make them more comfortable, or help the family out, right? And so you find yourself in those situations, and you're thinking, I'm going to manage this. It's not going to manage me. But that's not the case. Most times that's not the case. You begin leisurely drinking because your boy's drinking, and then you needed to go to sleep and to wake up, right? You can't get up. You can't sit down and relax without lighting up a spliff, right? And so these are the things that happen to you, and you don't anticipate these things happening because you're not paying attention to the environment around you, or you're saying to me, it's not going to happen to me what happened to Drex, right? And you're tricking or deceiving yourself into thinking, because those substance, the type of substance that manage you and control you in the end, and you will not be able to realize your best you, or realize the possibility that God would have presented to you, or the environment in which you live, would the opportunities would have been presented to you, right? And so I always talk to the folk, the children that are around me. I talk to them about these things. I encourage them in terms of the directions they should go, right? Although at the end of the day, it's their
They have a choice. They have a choice.
Yeah, it's their choice.
But at least they were told, and it's better to talk to people rather than not say anything at all, because when you speak to people, subconscious in their mind, they will remember what you say. And some will think twice before they go on that path.
And so what you see me did here in this country, what I engaged in this country when I came from the Bahamas, it is something that I was familiar with. Somebody did it for me, and I have been always encouraged by whoever did whatever they did for me to pass it on.
That's what I like.
Right? And so that's all it is. Right? Yes, it comes from love. It comes from wanting better for you, but somebody did it for me, right? And so what I do here in the Turks and Caicos, it is not foreign to me. It is who I am. It is a part of who I am, right? So when you see me work with young men in the area of basketball, when you see me encourage a young individual to make the most of opportunities, whether it be with regard to work or education or any other positive aspect of our life, make the most of those opportunities, right? One of the things that I'm really thinking about, and I've been thinking about for a while, and it took on even greater significance since the government has taken the decision to make tertiary education free to certain groups of people, right? I've been thinking about how can I now encourage our young men and young women to make the most of those opportunities.
To embrace it.
Because, a lot of times within our society, we make certain types of decisions and we make it for all the wrong reasons. Now, I can appeal to a number of schools to visit these schools, to come in and talk to the children. But sometimes, because being seen as a former politician or in some cases a current politician, people wouldn't allow me in the schools because they said that's going to get me an edge, right? But it isn't everybody who's concerned about the edge. People are concerned with bettering the life of our young men and our young women, helping them to make better choices.
You still cannot get into schools? Are you really?
Listen, remember I said I'm developing this thing right now.
Okay, all right.
And so I will discover later whether or not I'm going to be able to visit these schools.
I think you should be fine.
And talk to our people.
I think if you're a candidate,
Yeah.
in an election, I think you're prohibited from going to the schools.
Yeah.
But I think you should be fine.
And I'm hoping,
Yeah.
because I want our people, especially the indigenous people,
Mm.
to realize what the government has done for them by, and I ain't trying to get no brownie points for the government. Remember I told you earlier, you had one major scholarship in the Bahamas, and thousands of students applied for that
Yeah.
scholarship because that was their way out,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm saying that certain things have been handed to you on a platter. This
Embrace.
opportunity, and
Grab it.
Drex, what am I talking about? I'm sitting next to you. You are who you are at this point because of the opportunities that were presented to you in the area of education.
Yes.
You understand me?
I mean, you're same. We're in the same shoe.
Yes, right? So education does provide opportunities, but you have to make the most of the opportunities.
Yeah.
You can get an associate's degree. In some cases, you can get
A bachelor's
a
too.
bachelor's degree in certain areas. Imagine you not having to pay for it.
Yeah.
Like you understand me?
Of course.
And so the young people out there have
And you
to
can work.
recognize-
You can have a full-time job and still go to the community college.
Yes.
You know.
I don't know if they know
Yeah.
exactly what.
But that's a
they
great
offer to
initiative.
them.
That's a great thing you want to do.
Yes.
But tell us about some of the things you've done already.
Okay. No problem. Let's start in the general area. One of the things when I returned home, I begun to interact with the young men that played basketball and played a number of other sports because that was my passion. And so in Grand Turk, in Grand Turk and in Providenciales, as I continue to interact with these young people, I spoke to them about opportunities that could be made available to them by virtue of their sporty discipline and their love for various sports. But I also emphasize that you could be good in the sport, but if you're not, from an academic perspective, if you haven't been making the necessary grades, you will not be able to enter any tertiary any colleges or university, although you might be an excellent basketball player, but you got to have the grades to
Right.
go with that
Yeah.
in order to be able to get to where you want to get to, even in the area of a particular sport. And so I was able to influence a number of young men along those lines, right? Who recognize that, hey, there are opportunities because a lot of them, many of them didn't know that there were opportunities attached to playing basketball, to running track, and what have you. And so I began, right? And while I was working on that, Wendell Swan approached me on the island of Providenciales.
Honorable Wendell Swan.
Honorable Wendell Swan, thank you. Because he heard that one of my degrees was in the area of accounting. And he was looking to introduce national insurance here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And so he approached me and he spoke to me about it, and he told me he was working with the International Labour Organization and they're putting together the whole thing. He's getting funding for it. A portion of the funding is coming from them in terms of funds and human capital, right? He said the government was going to be funding a portion as well. And he said he's working through the logistics, and at a particular point, he can't say to me exactly when they're going to begin the project. And so a whole lot of time elapsed after that conversation. And so, part of the reason why I returned home, I was married. The woman wake up one day, says she loved me, but she didn't love me, she ran away, right?
Oh, boy.
It was interesting. So, but I was able to handle that because I had been through so much already, and I knew what I needed to do and stuff like that. And so I didn't want to take on a job that had anything to do with my book knowledge or with my degrees. I wanted something to tire me out so when I go home, I go to sleep.
Right.
So I began to work with Kevin's Quality Cleaners. That's who I worked with when I came in.
Yes, I remember seeing you.
Yeah. So I worked with Kevin. I was working with Kevin at the time, and Wendell approached me. And so I continued to work with Kevin, waiting on Wendell. Opportunities came up. I remember the gaming board started while I was working with Kevin. And so I spoke to Swanee. I said, Swanee, this opportunity has come up for me to boom, boom, and I'm ready to leave Kevin and move into something like that. She said, no, man, don't take the job, right? So I said, don't take the job. Like, boy, listen, Swanee, it's a great opportunity. Don't take the job. Be patient. Wait for me, right? So I waited. Right? I continued to work. I continued to work with Kevin. And you know, Drax, life is an unusual thing. And people have to understand that life, because I waited for Swanee, but while I waited for Swanee, I worked with Kevin. Right? And so, boom, the opportunity came. Project kicked off.
National insurance.
Yes, I'm the director counterpart. I had an awesome team. The Social Security Director of Cyprus's Social Security Board took a year leave of absence. Older fella, Drax, in his 50s, 60s, great.
And came to Turks and Caicos?
Yes, years of experience, right? Great guy, great guy. The actuarial scientist came from Italy, not a seasoned person, more senior person. She was around the same age. And then you had the IT guy came from England, Harry Grubby, and the other lady was Italian, Giovanni.
You remember their names?
Yeah, Miami. I spent a whole year with these people, Drax. So we formed the team.
Right.
Everybody else came later. So we formed the team, and we began to do the work. You know, and the persons that were selected were ideal for that task. We had a year to get this thing done, right? And to introduce this and get this to Parliament, and boom, we had a year. And so the project manager, right, Mr. Demetrius Palakanos, fellow don't play, right? We said, Trevor, we got 1 year to get this off the ground. Nothing more, nothing less. We will get this done in 1 year, right?
That's it.
And so, boom, we worked. We took Barbados' legislation, which was the most recent piece of Social Security legislation, and we used it as our basis
to form the one for Turks and Caicos.
Yes, right. And we made all the necessary changes to that legislation that coincided with the International Labour Organization bit of information, right? And other pertinent social institutions. We took all that on board because remember now, women were treated differently from men at that time. The men pension was greater.
In Turks and Caicos?
Not in the world.
Oh, okay.
Over, right?
Okay.
You had these disparities, right, between men and women, and so but. When we looked at the ILO conventions and other type of conventions, we were able to get the best piece of legislation.
Right. So we can learn from everybody else.
Yes,
and,
right.
And be equitable. Yeah.
And he worked it. He worked all of that. And at the end of our tenure, when we finished our project, on the day we were supposed to finish the project, Turks and Caicos legislation was a state-of-the-art legislation. It was the best piece of legislation within the regional Social Security institutions. Everybody looked at that legislation when they wanted to make changes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Because you put all it together from different others.
Right?
It was more modern.
Yes. And there we did things that huge countries like the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago didn't do. When we introduced that piece of legislation, we also introduced coverage for self-employed and employed persons when Trinidad was still struggling with introducing coverage for their self-employed. And to this day, they haven't introduced it, right? And so there were different institutions that were like that. And so we did the whole 9 yards with them. Drax, we used that as a basis. We produced the staff manuals. We did the advertisement.
During that 1 year?
Yeah, we did. We visited all the people throughout the islands and talk with them and explain to them what was going to be going on and how things would work, right? We brought them up to speed. We met with government employees. We met with everybody.
Right.
While at the same time, we produced all of the information that we needed to produce in terms of the pamphlets that would guide them in terms of each of the benefits and the overall structure, what have you, of the institution. We did the whole 9 yards within that 1 year. I remember there's some things that stood out in my mind as we did those things. I remember meeting Henny Smith. Henny Smith is from Grand Turk. I remember attempting to go into Henny Smith yard to talk to them about national insurance, because they already had a general idea about national insurance. And one of the things that the public embraced more than anything and kept at the forefront of their minds, they can take money from us, right? So when I jumped out of the vehicle and about to step onto Henry Park's property, he stopped me, right? And by the way, Henry Smith had his cutlass with him.
Wow.
Yeah, see, he had his cutlass. And so we tried to talk to Henry Smith from where we were. He didn't want to hear us. And Henry he wanted nothing to do with us. And it's primarily because people heard we want to take money out of this.
Right, just the negative part of it.
Yes, but we want to explain to him the benefits we're taking, but here's what we can bring in exchange for
it's an investment.
Yes. Right, and so we're trying to, but we were able to explain that to most people, and there were a number of persons who were aware of it, and they helped us. Politicians, business people, they could see the benefit in it, and so they helped us to sell it. And I can jump a couple of years forward. I remember being in the hallway at the NIB on Church Folly. Mr. Henry Smith came in. So I said, Mr. Smith, what are you doing here? He said, I come to get my benefit. I said, Mr. Smith, what benefit you talking about? You remember I tried to come to you to talk to you about it and so forth. He said, I come to get my benefit, and I'm entitled to my benefit.
That's right.
And this was the old age non-contributory pension. You didn't have to contribute to get that.
Right.
You had to be a particular age and had to have been a citizen and resided in the country for a period. And so, and he get his benefit, right? And so the National Insurance Organization begun. I was appointed the first director in terms of the National Insurance Board. But I gotta insert this piece. During the time that we worked on the project, governments changed, right? That was the famous, it's gonna get, Skip made the speech, it's gonna get worse before it gets better speech, which caused the governing party, the election that year, right? And so the Progressive National Party took over. Right. Michael Eugene Mizik began to work with us on the tail end of the project. Michael Eugene Mizik steered the
continuation.
Yes, he steered all the legislation through Parliament, got all the necessary improvements, and so basically he signed off on it in terms of introducing it.
So you're part of history of Turks and Caicos. With the national insurance. As a man, I think that's great for the community.
Yes.
You know,
but people always remember that now, Jack.
Yeah, well, that's why I have you here, because people saying, "We're the man. Here's this man." And you know,
people don't always remember that, and people don't always give you a roses while you're alive. We got to remember that, right? And sometimes you do the work, and somebody else gets the praise. Who don't even have a clue. If you ask them a question, what is this system about? How does this come about? And whatever, they don't have a clue. But they get the roses, right? But it's okay because.
No, but thank you for the contribution you've made. I will also thank Mr. Honorable Swan for selecting you. You know.
Yes, and then so I always try to explain to people, right? And politics is intended to be a good thing. Sometimes politics divide, right? Mind you, my approach to it, and I have every regard for the Honorable Michael Eugene Mizik and him steering it through, because he could have put it on the shelf. He did not put it on the shelf. He recognized that this institution
is beneficial.
Is beneficial to the people of this country, right? And not only did he agree and decided and convinced his party that this is good, let's continue what this gentleman started, what Honorable Swan started, but also he had the opportunity to work with us that first year and did everything that was in his power to make sure things flowed smoothly, because you would have needed additional money at the tail end of it, because Swanee got some initial money, but that money was to start the project.
It's just to cover.
So you have to go back to government now, and government have to, boom, give you another tranche of money, right? And so Michael was involved in that. Honorable Michael Mizik was involved in that, and he did the things that he needed to do the first year to ensure that we continue to grow and to develop and to appeal to the people. So sometimes both of these young men they contribute to something that is awesome and that will continue
Yes.
for many years.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't like to share the glory.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
when I have the opportunity, I speak well of both of them.
Yes.
Because it's like a relay, right?
Yes.
There was somebody who started and then another person who anchors.
Continue, right?
And
Reach the
so,
final.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so both of them has contributed to this institution that has kept us for many years.
Yes.
Because, you know, they just celebrated their 30th anniversary.
That's right.
Right? And so who would have thought that 30 years would have passed
Yeah.
and all these things would have continued on?
Yeah. Well, thank you for your contribution to the social pension scheme for the Turks and Caicos Islands, and it was done by you were the lead in that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I must say to you that I'm now serving as the chair.
Oh, okay.
Of the
NAT,
Turks and
okay.
Caicos Insurance Board.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And people need to understand me. I'm not tooting my own horn, but it's a good choice to, and it's a good time to make me cheer. Because remember now, this institution is 30 years older.
Yes.
Right? It will have gone through certain things, because you and I, in terms of our physical makeup, we go through certain things that
changes.
brought about as a result of aging. And so this institution has gone through certain things as a result of aging. It needs to be propped up, certain things need to be fixed and whatever, and so forth. COVID-19 came along, a number of things happened as a result of COVID-19. The institution age, we had new people coming into the system who doesn't recognize the true value of the institution, right? And don't hold it as dear to their heart as the original persons. And so all of these things are important. So I'm happy to be back. We also had a situation where the IT system that we use for most of the life of this institution is no longer available to us. We are looking at introducing
a new
system. So these are issues that we're faced with as a result of the aging of this institution.
Yeah, and the ICT is very important. It's a critical part of your organization.
And so that's why I'm saying it's good to be back at this stage.
Right.
So I can be a part of sorting out and addressing these issues.
Right.
I would not be the key part, but I would be a part of it.
At least leading it.
Yes.
Along with the
along with the other board members, right?
And the leadership team.
Yes. Right. Even the government will be playing their role in leading the changes as well. Them more than me.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they the persons who sign off on these things.
Approve it.
They are the persons who will have to finance it or approve the financing for it if we decide.
Yeah.
Right. The building that we have outgrown.
Yeah.
You understand me? We have to look at constructing a new building, right? And we have funds that needs to be invested, right? You and I talked about this before.
Yes.
There are portions of the fund that the investment committee and the board of directors over the years are looking to try and on-lend to businessmen within our society. Right, because we're getting a return from the bank in terms of our short-term investments, but we want to work these money.
I understand. In fact, when I spoke to Honorable Swan, that was the intention, that part of the funds were to be reinvested in the economy where persons could borrow and all that.
Yes, right. We just need to make sure we just get it right. We got to get it right. And so these are some of the things I hope will happen in the future. I know that this government and the government before, because it was mentioned to me before that they're interested in doing it, but the whoever does it will get most of the brownie points.
That's fine. That's fine.
And so it's good to be back at this stage as
welcome back
as the chair of the institution.
And I wish you the best with NIB.
Yeah.
Now, before we end the show, I want us to go back to the sports. There are some young men I know who were able to get scholarships and stuff into
a tremendous
can you talk about that? Because some of these men, had not been for you, I believe some of them wouldn't have not been able to go to university.
Yeah.
Before we end the show, can you talk about that too?
I will talk about two things before you.
Okay, fine.
That one is going to be one of them. Yes. So I began at the beginning of the show explaining to you what was my passion, sports.
Yes.
My passion, but even more importantly, making use of opportunities that sports presented to me and presented to those young men And so we had about 18 of them.
Oh.
Yeah, about 18 of them that I was able to work with and get them placed in 2 schools on the island of Grand Bahama. One was a government school and one was a private institution. The basketball players went to Tabernacle Baptist High School on the island of Grand Bahama, and the track and field guys went to Huxville High School.
So that's like the last 2 years of high school?
That's from 7th to 12th grade.
Oh, they spent all those years there?
No, all of them didn't spend all those years, because some of them spent more time than others. Marciano Williams was the youngest. He was a basketball player. So Marciano would have been the youngest person we sent to Tabernacle.
And you send them there because they had opportunity to go to the U.S., is that why?
Yes, Tabi was well connected. Tabi had an inventory of scouts. It had a connection with a number of colleges and universities. Tabi would have put them in great position to be able to access free education, right? In terms of basketball, and the same thing with track and field. One of my old deputy principals was the individual who headed up the track and field club at Huxville High School, Mr. Errol Bodie, Leroy Kennedy, Myron Lightburn, and what
about, what's Cecilia's son name?
No, that's basketball.
That's basketball, okay.
Yeah, oh man, I'm forgetting one of the premier runners. He goes by the name of Ticker. He's called him Thyroid Smith.
Okay.
Right? Those were the 3 track and field guys.
Okay.
That went off. I mean, that went to Huxville High School, who eventually got their degrees.
In the U.S.
Yes.
Okay.
In the
Well,
US.
that's a great.
Yeah. So those 3 guys, the 3 track guys, got their degrees. A number of the basketball players who went to Tabernacle were able to get their degrees. Ira Taylor, Lawrence Boyce,
Yes.
Alvin Parker.
Yes.
Who else did we have?
I mean, Alvin, who's now the sports
The
commission?
deputy,
What about his brother? Was his brother one of them?
No, his mom wouldn't let him go.
Oh.
Yeah, his mom.
Because I know one of them was very good in basketball in college. They almost made it to professional team, but then they sprained his ankle.
Yeah, that's him. That's the other brother.
Okay.
Yeah, his mom. This one was a mama's boy.
Okay.
His mom,
He almost.
his mom was.
He was going to make an MBA, but he had unfortunately he wasn't meant to be, I guess.
But things worked out for him because he never took the route that the other guys took.
He didn't.
No, he didn't go to Tabi.
Yeah.
Right, but this he was one of the better players.
Yeah.
Coming out of Turks and Caicos.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, he would have gone pro.
He would have, definitely
but
for
there was
sure.
somebody who were on the verge of going pro, who was handed a contract before him.
Oh.
He was the second person.
Okay.
Ira Taylor.
And what happened?
I haven't really spoken with him about it.
Oh, I need to get Ira on the show.
You need to get him on the show because I was talking to his wife one day, and she began a conversation with me, and so she said, Trevor, I was going through my closet, I was doing like a little bit of spring cleaning, and you won't believe what I came across. I said, what did you come across? He said, I came across a contract. I said, what do you mean a contract? Ira was provided with a contract to play basketball. I think it was in Europe someplace.
Oh wow!
Right? And she said and I went through and I looked at the terms of the contract. It was a great contract. And she said, but he never made use of the contract. He never signed
He never took it.
He never went, right? And so I said, now I'm aware of that situation, and I became aware of that situation in later years. I wasn't aware of it before, as I would have encouraged him and pressed him to do it.
Interesting.
Right? So it was him. He had an opportunity, and playing basketball in Europe, you make money.
Yeah.
You might make as much as the NBA, but you make money. And in some Europe countries, you make more money than you make.
But even though they didn't make it to the pro, these guys are doing a very good job in society.
They were able to get their, degrees.
They're working in the private sector, have their own businesses.
They got their masters.
Or in the public sector.
They got their masters. So we had. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody.
That's okay.
But we had quite a bit.
I think that in itself is a significant role in what you've done.
And then we had other kids who never went to Tabi,
But
they
when
but they
directly,
understood. Some of them went to the community college, right? We got Leo. Leo Mizik has a number of sons, and sometimes I don't even remember the boy's name. Somebody we call him by the nickname so much, right?
Right.
Because you got Levad Mizik, you got his brother Bucket, who was able to parlay the community college into
and
a
then
degree.
that is awesome.
Levad has a master's in it has something to do with the police.
So
force.
there are a lot of young men.
Yes.
There are men in the society who are progressing and making a positive impact. I think that's the whole key we want to. What's your second point you want to raise?
The second point, I want to talk a little bit about national health.
Briefly, let's talk about that.
Briefly, thank you very much. The NHIP, because a lot of people aren't even aware that we at NIB begun to work on the National Health Insurance
You're
Board.
setting up the national health?
Yes,
Okay.
because what it was, we as directors of Social Security boards, we recognized that we had funds. Our government didn't have the funds to really look into the introduction of national health. And so all of us within the region decided to take it on. So what happened that we here in the Turks and Caicos Islands, we were really pursuing it. Risa and I went to Jamaica, because Risa was my person who was in charge of that area. She reported to me, but she was the face of that. And so we went to Jamaica to look at their National Health Insurance Board. And so we looked at theirs. So we came back home, and so we were about to go to the ABC Islands, because we heard the Dutch were renowned for health insurance. And so while I was sitting there and thinking, hey, we need to find a date to go, I said, man, Trevor, this don't make no sense. Why are you going to them when we could bring everybody to us? So I had two colleagues who we worked together really well within the Social Security fraternity, right? The director of the Social Security Board in Belize, and the Bahamas National Insurance Director. So I called them up, I spoke with them. I said, listen, I have an idea, and I need you guys to support me on this idea. Not only morally, in terms of providing that moral support, but financially as well. I want to bring all of the Social Security directors to one spot, right? And bring all the health practitioners and everybody related to the area of health insurance to one spot, so we could begin to discuss this thing in a formal setting, right? And all of them were on board. And so they begun by sending, the Bahamas sent me a professor who worked with them at the National Insurance Board, but who spent time working at UE as well. Belize did that. The Bahamas, the current speaker's wife was the representative of the National Insurance System of the Bahamas. And so we begun the process. So all the directors came from all over the region. And we met here in the Turks and Caicos for the first time. Right? And so we began to discuss it. And so all the health insurance systems that you see that are popping up throughout the region came about as a result of that
meeting.
Of that meeting.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and so those were things that we did.
Right.
And it was us here in the Turks and Caicos Islands that took the lead.
And you led that.
Yes. Right. So that was good for us as a country.
Well, Trevor, we have to end the show now, but
because you and I, we are like, we can talk.
Yes. So I just want to thank you very much. Do you have any closing remarks you want to make before?
Yes. Thank you very much for having me on the show. I also want to take the opportunity to say to the young men and women of this country that certain opportunities have been presented to you, right? Because we complain a lot as people, right? We do. But we complain about what we don't have, but we ain't paying attention to what we have.
There you go.
What's being offered to us, right? So the opportunity to become a student at the community college, to get your associates or your bachelors in the various areas being offered, you got to make the most of those opportunities, and you will realize that you will go from it, and you'll be able to contribute to the development of your country in a greater way. And so I want to encourage those people out there to continue to do that. And I also want to encourage the young people that they need to pay attention to what is going on in the society. A lot of our young men are losing their lives because they want to take the wrong route. They want to become rich, but they want to go about it the wrong way. but it's not working out. Look how many of them we're losing.
Yeah.
When they can stick around and do some great things, and we as a country can benefit from them, and the younger people can use them as an example in terms of plotting their way forward.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to tell them they need to rethink what they're doing and how they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna get the money anyway. It's just gonna take take a little bit longer.
Right.
But when you find yourself involved in crime, right, and so forth, you tend to hook up with the wrong people, and they don't have your best interest at heart. In the beginning, it appears so, but in the end, it doesn't appear so. Thank you once again, and I gotta say to my children, my 4 children, and I thank them for supporting me and for encouraging me. The things that I'm saying to the young people in the public, and other people's children, I've said to my children, and I've enforced with my children, because I have 3 of my children who either they have their masters or they have the degrees, or they are about finishing up or about to start. Even some of my siblings' children, right? And so they are doing great things. Whoopi children, Wendy children, and so forth. And so the way forward, Drex, thank you once again. And before I leave your show, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you. I appreciate this show. I appreciate all the other shows you have. I appreciate how you critique the government, and the government needs to learn to take that criticism in the way that it's intended. You're working with them. They need to understand. And sometimes there are areas that they're missing and so forth. And they might say, I want you to come behind closed doors and whisper it in my ear. But things don't work that way, right? But you need to understand I'm on your side when I offer these critiques, because I want better for us as a country. And I thank you very much for all of those things. And thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Well, you've been watching the Drexel SEMA show. My host was, my guest, was Mr. Trevor Cooke. And he's one man, and I know you're wondering, where are the men? I've just introduced you to one man here in the Turks and Caicos Islands who played an integral part in our social security system, who played an integral part in our national health system, who played an integral part in training and grooming a lot of young men, allowing them to pursue their degrees, and now they're back. They returned to Turks and Caicos, being very important here, playing very important roles in the country. So there are men in this country who are doing their part. We need more men, of course, to stand up and do their part. But I just want to introduce you to Mr. Trevor Cooke. And I hope that you are encouraged, I hope that you are inspired, that there are people out here who are helping other men, other women to become what they're supposed to be. And I encourage all of you, to stay focused and know your worth, and always know that, there's something better for you. There's something great for you. It's not what you have now. And I like how Trevor ended. Stop focusing on what you don't have. And I wrote an article on this a few weeks ago. Look at what you have and use what you have to become a better person. Thank you for watching the show. Remember to subscribe.